Oui, c'est bon. Vraiment, le printemps ici.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much all for continuing to be part of the discussion on advancing and promoting women across diverse sectors, including corporations and the business sector. And I'm very excited to be part of this panel, the CEO Champions, which is an initiative dedicated to bringing together CEOs, thought leaders, and the like to identify what are the biggest challenges in advancing women, and most importantly, to be able to create and put together actionable solutions so that more corporations around the world can promote and include women. And I think this is a very relevant discussion in this current economic climate where human capital and innovation is imperative, and with globalization and hyper-competitive markets, talent is everything, and women aren't ascending to the levels of the highest forms of senior leadership that they should be, and this has economic impact as well. So I would like to introduce our panelists to my right. We have I'll start with the gentleman representing the panel, Olivier Fleurot, who's the CEO of MSLGROUP. We have Viviane Redding, who's the Vice President of the European Commission. And we have Patricia Barbizet, who's the Vice Chair, Board of Directors of PPR. And the goal of this panel is to first get a sense of some of the context of the larger issues that companies face today in terms of advancing women, but also really focus on some actionable solutions that both corporate leaders as well as each of you can take away to better change some of the bleak statistics that we have. So, Patricia, I'll start with you. In our discussion today and in our discussions around CEO Champions, we know that change has to start at the top. It has to start at the top to have credibility, and senior leaders need to be committed, and that's where change will happen. Yet, while many leaders say they want to advance women and embrace diversity, often there's very little action around that. How do we, as part of CEO Champions and the larger group here, work to influence CEOs to help them make that a priority?
Thank you. I'm very honored to be there today. I wouldn't be so pessimistic. I think that things have changed, and at least the question doesn't seem odd anymore. I think all CEOs, all companies, everybody has realized that it was a key issue. It was not only a woman issue, not only a gender issue, but a strategic issue for companies and a key governance issue for everybody. So at least that's a real major step since we started some years ago, even here at the forum, to start about the question. And so we will discuss how we can help them. But many things have been done, including raising the issues, asking the women themselves. The other big change is, and you will see in the champions, in the CEO Champions panel, which have been before this panel, about women have plenty of ideas to help them and to help the company to help them. So taking in consideration the fact that it is a strategic issue, realizing that some things have been done but not enough, reassess the improvements which have been made, and making much more and is on the way. And we'll discuss about how to make much more, but there is a lot to do to increase the pipelines, to feed from the very beginning, even in education, how female can achieve the right path and the right track to be at the very top when in due course. Make sure that every woman have the track that she deserves, and making the companies realizing and committed on how they promote, how they measure the promotion, and how the leaders are themselves incentivized to do that. So not only to observe, but to really act in the way.
You brought up the point that the advancement of women actually speaks to the larger issue of talent innovation and talent development. And this is imperative for companies to succeed in this business climate. Olivier, do you think companies are spending enough time on looking at talent models? Are talent models today outdated, given all the dynamic changes that we've seen, and particularly in light of the anemic numbers of women advancing to middle and senior level management?
Thank you. Well, yes, I do think that a lot of models are really outdated, that a lot of companies are still more or less to exaggerate, organize for the 20th century and not for the 21st century. That's why with Ernst & Young last year we decided that we should create this very specific group called the CEO Champions Group, and where we launched it last year. And we've just spent 2 hours with 30 CEOs to discuss new ways of hiring talent, but also promoting talent.
Why do you think in a time where innovation and strategy is so imperative, and where all the time we talk about business strategy and how to move forward in that respect, Viviane, why do you think that there are so many challenges in terms of getting companies to think about talent differently? And you've done a lot of work in terms of helping collaborate with the business community to show them the economic empowerment reasons for talent innovation. From your perspective, why do you see the lack of attention around talent innovation?
Well, there is a lot of attention coming lately, but some months ago it started. It started when at the European level I said if it wasn't going to change, I was introducing quotas at the European level. Then all of a sudden there was a movement going on. I am very glad to hear that this movement is on its way. But let us look at the facts and the figures. In the boards of the big listed companies in Europe, there are 13% of women. Now, that is a fact, but what is the progress? In the last years, the progress has been 0.5 percentage point progress per year. Now, I have calculated that will need 50 years to come there, and I said I'm not going to wait 50 years to be there. I organized a roundtable with the CEOs of the large listed companies Europe-wide. I'm not only speaking about France, which has, fortunately, a law on quotas, but there are only 5 European member states who have a law on quotas, the others don't. There are some who are very reluctant. Out of 3 big companies, only 1 has a woman on board, so things are not going well at all. So I brought the CEOs around the table and I told them, look, you tell me you will manage to do it. So do it. Do it. Take a decision in your board that you are going to replace outgoing board members, males, by females. Bring in the women. 60% of university graduates are females. So what a loss of opportunities not to have them integrated. And I think everybody agrees nowadays that women mean business in the sense that they bring more income to a company if you have them at a medium level and at the top level decision making. So it is good for the companies to get them. But in a crisis time, we have maybe to give a push to the companies that they go good through themselves.
So you're helping to bring awareness and give a push, and you said that you're going to try self-regulation one more time, potentially before looking at quotas. But so often we look at board statistics and statistics at the executive level because they're, I think, the easiest metrics to identify. But in fact, they reflect something, I think, far more illustrative about the larger issues at hand, and that is the talent pipeline underneath. And unless there's opportunities to develop that talent pipeline, those numbers and startling statistics you mentioned won't necessarily change. Patricia, do you think companies today are looking at talent management effectively at all the different levels within a corporation, recognizing that, you know, at the top there's very, very few women, but the majority of companies have over 50% women at the entry levels?
I think that what Viviane Reding said is very true. I think they do. It's pretty new, but I really feel that the question is being addressed. Not solved, not answered, not satisfactorily answered, but addressed. And I would make a difference between the boards and the top executive management. As far as the board, I was not in the favor of the quotas. I think it's a failure of self-regulating and self-promoting, but I have to recognize that it was the right move to start the move. And I think that now in France, at least, it's part of the game. Nothing is completely solved. We will have some issues then to solve to see how to have the right competence and talents to the boards. But at least it is done, and rightly so. I'm more in what I suggest as well, and I think it's as well self-regulating is much, much better. And I think as we understand now that it is a real strategic issue for all the companies, it is a real rising talents and diversity, not only gender diversity, but diversity is bringing so much to a company, especially in the 21st generation, that I think we have to make sure that it is addressed like any governance or strategic issues. And I would go alongside that Viviane Reding was saying as well. Stop talking about, stop arguing the matter, just do it. And I would almost suggest, like we have done in many other topics, like comply or explain. Now, if the CEOs, either they do it and they can report, and I said they have done it, or they have to explain why they are not. But, and if it doesn't work that way, maybe we will have to go back to the quota situations. But
do you think we're actually, though, looking at or effectively addressing some of the other statistics in the companies, and that is where there's huge attrition of women leaving companies and where the talent pipeline is getting smaller and smaller for women rather than always focusing at the board?
Yes, and so that's why the question of the board is another question from the top management. And we have absolutely to address all the question of the management because it's a question of promotion, and women have to access when they are ready. To be ready, they have to be trained, they have to be accessing to the right path in the companies, and they have to be trained and looked for from the very beginning. Education in itself, but from being hired in the companies, being promoted in the right way. And some issues are now well known and well addressed in the companies, or well addressed, at least well identified, like the high potential finding of talents, to make sure that a large company can identify the rising talents, not only between 30 and 35 years old when women are sometimes busy as well in another family situations, and they cannot compete the same way. But to make sure that at least the companies have 2 or 3 different moments when they can identify the rising talents and to promote them a different way, to offer the right tracks and to address the question of geographical mobility, to address as well the question of to have some leaders at the top. You have to create leaders from the bottom and not to create only hyper specialists of some things. Women have been tempted in the groups to focus on very skilled and specialized items like legal or accountancy or some very technical things, because it was the only way. 35 years ago when I began my career, it was the only way to be hired in a company was to be able to bring a skill, a technical skill of something. For me, it was finance. Someone else, it was something else. But if we want to have leaders, we have to make sure that those talents are not more and more deeply in that specialist skill, but being able to be offered some leaders jobs, managements, enlargements, moving in the companies, moving in the geography, and to create and to promote really leaders. And we have in the companies to make sure that we address those issues at the different steps of the things. And maybe one thing is, when we promote women, we have to make sure that themselves will be able to promote and to raise the right questions, to address the different situations, like making sure that the rhythm of works is of 21st generation and 21st century and not 20th century. So I think it has to be done on a long term situations to make sure that it is promoted the right way with skilled and expert women. But we can do it.
So companies need to really address then talent
comply or
models at every stage of development, and with high potential leaders really develop that career track to ensure that they have access to those opportunities. And I think you brought up a great point in terms of specialization, and that now more than ever talent needs to be adaptable and nimble. And Olivier, I would love to get your perspective as an executive and someone who has managed a lot of female talent. One of the things that we talk about often is not just what companies and what CEOs can do to change an environment, but what women themselves can do to better develop a successful career track, including raising their hand for promotions, in terms of letting people know of the great work that they've done rather than expecting to be recognized for their hard work. What things have you seen that have been successful with women that you've managed as they've developed their career path? And what advice would you give to other women in this room to ensure that they're focusing on the strategic efforts to achieve the types of goals they want to achieve?
Wow. Big question. First, be more confident. We were talking with the CEO champions that when you offer a job to a man, even if he doesn't have the experience, he says, yeah, I'll go for it. And when you do exactly the same offer to a woman, she says, but you know I've never done that. So there's a big difference here of confidence, or a different way of expressing their ambitions or their desire. Well, exposure. Women need to be, and men, but need to be exposed very early in their career to, for instance, board and how they work. And we had a very good example in South Africa with Wendy Luabe saying that they take young women in the board. Of course, they are not board members, but they see how it works, the kind of discussions, and it gives them confidence. By the way, we had a wonderful example in Brazil, a woman who I think is the top and most senior person of that company. It's a construction company, okay? So no women, right? Well, there was 100% male 5 years ago. Now it's 50-50. So we must ask her how she did that in a construction company. And by the way, the CEO Champions is about commitment. So she committed to expand that from Brazil to the whole of Latin America next year. So, a wonderful example of commitment. Exposure as early as possible. There was a very interesting research saying that they looked at MBAs, okay? So young women and young men just getting their MBAs. The difference appears with the first job. The difference appears with the first job. Women are on a slow track immediately and men on a fast track. So it's at the very beginning that we need to start doing something and making sure that women are not on slow tracks and can be. Last point, sorry for that, but the work-life balance is clearly a big topic. And when I say we're not ready for the 21st century, asking for long hours in the office is what I think the most stupid thing we can imagine. We can all work from anywhere, right? And so there's absolutely no excuse for not having more flexibility in terms of where you work and how you work, provided. So we need to have different metrics, not the number of hours in the office, but the performance and what you deliver.
I think what's so interesting and keeps reoccurring is that change has to be driven through a multitude of different channels, from the executives to women themselves, but also obviously the intersection between government, policy, and the like. You are championing, it's okay. Jet lag. We'll just chalk it off to that. You are working with so many different companies to help push them in this direction to promote diverse talent. What are some of the best practices that you have been promoting or that you have seen in companies that other industries can look to adopt or help to think about as they grapple with this similar challenge?
Well, I think what both our speakers have been saying is absolutely true. Women lack, most of all, confidence. And that is why women need role models. You have to show this woman is capable to do it. Well, you are capable to do it too. And that is why I really do believe in role models. And that is why I am fighting also, for instance, for the boards. Because those are role models. They are coming from the top, but I agree it is not enough. But we have to prepare women so that they are board ready, as we say. So we are training now the women to be board ready. I had a meeting with the biggest business schools in Europe, and they agreed on taking an initiative. A double initiative. The first one being to see that more women come to MBAs, and then that when they get out of the MBAs, they get also the top level jobs. For this, we need also to make women understand that networking is of utmost importance. And I thank the forum here, because the idea of networking is something you have to bring in the mind of the women, and you have to help women to network. Women work overtime, because they work at home, they work in the job, and then they don't have time for networking anymore, and they don't understand the necessity of it. We have to make them understand the necessity. Now there is something else. I always hear from CEOs, oh, well, you know, I would like very much to engage a woman, but I don't find one. Yeah, okay.
We can give names, you know.
Yeah, I know. I give them names all the time. But so the fact is, I have asked the business schools, why don't you make a specific training for women who are in a profession, who of course have done their MBA already, but are in the age of 40, 50, in order to make them board ready, to train them for being members of the board? Business school says yes. They are going to do it. They are going to take an initiative in that way. So you see, we are working on different levels in order to get rid of all the arguments against bringing women on board. And then there is a fascinating figure. I don't know if you know this one, but I made it control twice because I didn't believe it was right. But you see, men become fathers and women become mothers. They are both working. When a woman becomes mother, statistically, she starts to work less in her job. When a man becomes father, statistically, he works more in a job. Oh, all right.
Olivier, do you have children? Would you agree, or no comment?
No comment. I have 3 sons, and we both worked when we had 3 sons. I don't know.
I'm one of 5 daughters, so I think my father definitely realized it was advantageous in our teenage years to work more.
But look, the figures are right. But what do those figures tell us? Those figures tell us that we have to change society so that the fact of becoming a parent is a valuable asset for our society. We have to train our society and our companies to take that into consideration. That will be the basis of bringing more women in top level.
You are very right, but that's why more flexibility for both men and women, because of course men don't really ask for flexibility because they would look like, you know. So, but some of them would enjoy more flexibility too. So that's a very important point that all the CEO champions are going to work on.
Olivier, you made up a great point. You just said a great point in that when we look at opportunities to improve work-life balance and to improve talent management, that it shouldn't necessarily be solely focused on women, that we need to make sure that we are innovating and promoting the best talent and offering those opportunities to everyone. As we wrap up this session, I think you all have provided some really interesting context for the challenges that we face, as well as some actionable ways in which each of us as employees, employers, and individuals across all the different sectors of government and the like can impact change. I'll ask you one final quick question because I think you've made all of us much more optimistic about the opportunities to change some of the numbers that have been playing around in our heads for far too many years. I'll start with you. If you had to look over the past 2 years, whether it be the companies you work with or other companies, I would love for each of you to name the most innovative or interesting practice that you've seen implemented to help advance women. And it can be very small, but just something that's out of the box that made you think, wow, I haven't seen that before. It's worth talking about.
Maybe two things. First, to come back to answer partly your question and to comment what Viviane was saying. When people, when we had that law last year or 2 years ago in France about the boards, everybody was looking for women for the boards, and we had the answers of we can't find them. And it's quite true that the pool of executed, committed, experienced, skilled, confirmed board members was not huge. And it creates two interesting things. The first one was we have to find a dual track. The first one is if we can't find them now, let's make sure that we promote them and we train them and we are in a position to bring women to have, through the classical route, to be board ready with some initiative, including internal boards, because let's not forget that in the big groups, they have a lot of subsidiary boards where you can really train younger women. So make sure that we take the appropriate steps to bring them, and it was a good aim and a good target to do so. And the second thing, which was interesting as well, is it forced boards to say, by the way, what kind of board members do we need? What is a board member to be achieving? And for the first time, because of the women and the gender question, the idea was maybe we cannot clone ourselves eternally for the rest of our lives. And at the end of the day, sometimes it happened that even a male was appointed in a board, but it was the first step and a major change, not only a little step, of maybe we can start thinking of what is a board for, what kind of talent, of achievement, of experience we could really bring something to the company, and not only how we are replicating the normal people we have already in the boards to change the prospects.
So you started to see new conversations happening in the boardroom, which is a positive.
I think so.
Olivier?
I would say the best thing that happened in France last year was that the government threatened to impose quotas. And so all of a sudden, companies, it was a bit of a shock and surprise. And so it's good to threaten, but not to do it. You see what I mean? Because we don't need quotas. I don't think quotas work really well. But to threaten, that's very good, because all CEOs started to,
Did they do anything? And did you see one thing that was interesting that surprised you? by a CEO? Was there one innovation that they did that sparked your interest?
Well, I think that the most interesting thing that I've seen so far is taking care of gender diversity as early as possible. And we have many examples in the CEO Champions. Don't wait for the time when they are 40 years old or whatever. Start at the very beginning.
And you have a very comprehensive view of the different businesses throughout Europe. What's been most exciting for you that you've seen happen?
Well, the first very exciting one was when I threatened things started to move. But you must know in politics, people must know perfectly well that you are not only threatening, that you have the power to do. And I tell you, I have the power to do. Now, experiences. Some which have really impressed me. One is, you know, that the assistants to board members, those who are going to the board and follow the board, are mainly young men. Now, to take young women into it, because they will grow into the board. That is the one. And another one which I liked very much, the girl going with Papa to his work. So both are understanding. The Papa is understanding and the girl is understanding.
Well, I wanted to thank you all for this very, very interesting and also encouraging conversation. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that all of us need to be committed to this change. And what's even more exciting is that all of us have the ability in whatever roles that we have now to be able to impact that change, not just in the months to come, but in the years ahead. So thank you so much. And hopefully when we come back next year, we'll have more positive statistics to talk about.